I know what you have been doing. You have been staying quiet, smiling when they insult you, nodding when they take credit for your work, swallowing it, all of it, like medicine that tastes like poison. And everybody around you calls that maturity. They call it patience. Oh, they love that word, patience, when it is your suffering being postponed. But I have watched something they have not. I have watched the silence build pressure. I have watched the ones who said nothing, slowly, quietly, without a single announcement, become untouchable. You think staying silent means losing. Ha! That is the most beautiful lie they ever sold you. Because while you said nothing, something else was speaking for you. Something older, something colder, something that does not need your permission. And it has already started moving things in your favor. They were there, every single one of them. When the floor fell out from under you, when you lost the thing you built with your own bleeding hands, when you sat in that room alone at 2 a.m, staring at a ceiling that had no answers, they were there, and they did nothing. Oh, do not misunderstand me. They showed up. They brought their soft voices and their careful eyes. They said, "I am so sorry. I had no idea it was that bad." And they meant it. The way people mean things when meaning costs them absolutely nothing. I remember a smell. Burnt coffee, cheap plastic chairs, a room where someone told me, very gently, that I was no longer needed, and the person sitting across from me, someone I had protected, covered for, carried, did not even flinch, just nodded, like I was a weather report, like I was already gone before I stood up. I did not scream. I did not flip the table. I simply said, "All right then," and walked out. And that was the moment everything changed. Not the betrayal, the silence after it. See, most people think the wound is the dangerous part. They are wrong. The dangerous part is what grows in the wound when no one is watching. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop defending yourself, when you look at someone who wronged you and feel nothing urgent, no fire, no tears, no begging, just a long, cold, quiet understanding. That is not weakness leaving your body. That is something far worse, for them, moving in. Here is what they never told you about being underestimated. It is a gift. Oh, I laughed the first time I realized it. Really laughed. The kind that hurts a little behind the ribs. Because while they were busy feeling superior to you, they stopped watching you. And the moment someone stops watching you is the moment you become free. Free to move. Free to rebuild, free to become something so far beyond what they dismissed, that when they finally look up, and they will look up, you will not even recognize the expression on their face. Because no one practices the look they make when they realize they were wrong about you. No one rehearses that. I have seen it. I have stood in rooms where powerful people suddenly became very small, not because I threatened them, not because I performed, but because I simply kept going, quietly, deliberately, without their permission or their applause. And there is something in this world, call it karma, call it gravity, call it the mathematics of patience, that notices when a person keeps going after every reason to stop. It starts rearranging things, subtly, without announcement. A door opens that was never supposed to open for you. A person enters your life who has exactly what you need. A moment arrives that looks like luck, but is actually just the delayed arrival of everything you earned in the dark. You have been in the dark for a while now, have you not? I know. I can tell by the way you are still here, still listening. People who have everything do not search for this kind of voice. Only the ones who have felt something come looking for these words at this hour. So let me tell you something I mean with every fracture in my chest. Your silence was not surrender. Your stillness was not failure. It was accumulation. Every humiliation you swallowed, stored. Every injustice you absorbed without exploding, cataloged. Every night you chose to keep going instead of falling apart, counted. By something that keeps far better records than people do. They thought you were fading, You were loading. And the ones who laughed at your quiet have no idea what quiet sounds like right before it becomes thunder. Let me tell you about the ones who moved things around you. Not the enemies. Not the ones who stabbed you openly. Those ones are easy. Those ones are honest. I am talking about the quiet architects, the ones who smiled at your face and subtly, carefully, with surgical patience, rearranged the room while you were distracted by your own pain. They moved the goalposts. They rewrote the rules mid-game. They handed you a map of a city that no longer existed, and then they watched you wander and called it your fault. I once knew a man who believed in fairness. Oh, truly believed in it. The way children believe the darkness under the bed stops at the mattress edge. He worked harder than anyone in that building. Arrived first, left last. Gave ideas freely, generously, like a man who had not yet learned that generosity in the wrong room is just a slower way of being robbed. One morning he came in and found someone else sitting at his desk, wearing his title, answering his emails. And the worst part, everyone acted like it was always that way, like he had imagined the years, like loyalty was something he had dreamed. I looked at that man in the mirror for a long time. Then I stopped being him. Here is the first thing they do not want you to understand. The game was never designed for you to win inside it. It was designed for you to keep playing, tired, grateful for scraps, too invested to walk away. Because a player who walks away cannot be controlled. And the only thing more terrifying to a system than someone who breaks it is someone who simply leaves it, quietly, without drama. Without a farewell speech or a final confrontation, just gone, building something elsewhere, something they cannot touch, something they did not give you permission to have. They were never actually ahead of you. Oh, I know how it looked. The titles, the offices, the announcements, the way they carried themselves like people who had solved something you had not. But here is the cold truth I want you to sit with. Most people in positions of power are not there because they were the best. They are there because they moved first. They were shameless first. They asked first. They took first. And you were raised to wait your turn, to earn it, to be worthy of it before claiming it. That training was not education. That was a leash, a beautifully stitched, socially acceptable leash, and you wore it like a medal. The moment I understood that, really felt it settle in my bones like winter cold, I stopped competing on their terms. I stopped performing for audiences who had already decided the outcome. I stopped shrinking my vocabulary, my posture, my ambition to fit inside spaces that were never built for someone like me. And something extraordinary happened. The second I stopped trying to win their game, I stopped losing. Funny how that works. Funny in the way that only hurts if you think about how long you played by rules that were written against you. But here is what they truly miscalculated. They assumed that when they blocked the door, you would keep knocking. They planned for that. They had responses prepared for your persistence, your appeals, your carefully worded emails. What they did not prepare for was you building your own door, somewhere they were not watching, were not. In the hours, they assumed you were grieving. In the silence, they mistook for defeat. You were not grieving. You were architectural. You were drawing blueprints in the dark with whatever material the dark provided. I have seen people attempt to bury someone and accidentally plant them. Oh, the look on their faces when the thing they buried starts growing back, not as what it was, as something more, something angrier, something sharper, something that learned from being underground exactly how deep their foundations go and found them shallow. You cannot stop what grows from genuine pain. You cannot legislate what rises from real loss. They tried to end a chapter and instead handed you the pen. And now you are holding it. Maybe you do not feel it yet. Maybe your hand still shakes a little. That is fine. The best things ever written were written by shaking hands. There is a specific kind of silence that follows someone who has stopped caring about being understood. Not the silence of the defeated, not the silence of the broken, the silence of someone who has finally completely decided that the opinion of people who never truly saw them is simply irrelevant. You know that silence. You have been practicing it, maybe without even realizing. Maybe you thought you were just tired. But I know the difference between exhaustion and evolution. And what is happening inside you right now is not collapse. It is conversion. I used to need them to know. Oh, desperately. I wanted the ones who dismissed me to one day stand in the wreckage of their assumptions and understand, fully, painfully understand, how badly they had miscalculated me. I wanted the confession, the apology delivered in a voice that trembled. I was wrong about you, they would say, and I would feel complete. I chased that feeling for years, dressed it up in ambition, called it motivation. But underneath every goal I set was that one small, burning, embarrassing need. Just see me correctly. Just once. Just enough. And then something happened that no one warns you about. I achieved things. Real things. Things that could not be argued with, minimized, or reframed. And the people I had spent years wanting recognition from gave it. Awkwardly. Late. With that particular smile people wear when admitting something costs them dignity. I always knew you had it in you, one of them said. I looked at him for a long moment and felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication, nothing. And that nothing, that nothing was the most important feeling I have ever had. Because here is where it gets uncomfortable. Here is where I stop being the villain you root for and become the mirror you look away from. The revenge you are fantasizing about, I understand it. I have tasted it. I have planned it in detail at 3 a.m. with a clarity that felt almost holy. But revenge aimed at people who have already lost their power over you is just self-harm wearing a costume. It keeps you connected to them. It keeps you in the same story. And that story, their story, is not big enough for what you are becoming. The most devastating thing you can do to someone who underestimated you is not to destroy them. It is to outgrow them so completely that destroying them never even occurs to you anymore. That is not mercy. Do not mistake it for mercy. That is mastery. I learned this the hard way. I burned things I should have preserved. I poisoned rooms I could have simply walked out of. I made noise when silence would have been surgical, and every time I reached for destruction instead of distance, I gave them exactly what they wanted. A reason to be right about me, a headline that confirmed their narrative. See, we told you he was unstable. See, we told you he could not handle it. Oh, I handed them those lines myself, gift-wrapped, with a bow, because I confused intensity with power and chaos with control. And the difference between those two things is everything. Real power does not announce itself at the door. Real power is already seated when you arrive. Real power does not raise its voice because it does not need the room to quiet down. The room already is quiet. Real power does not chase the ones who left. It builds something so undeniable that the ones who left spend the rest of their lives explaining the decision to themselves at 2 a.m, on their ceilings, with no answers, the same way you once did. I want you to feel that symmetry. Really feel it. Not with bitterness. Bitterness is just grief that forgot to cry. Feel it with clarity, with the calm, architectural understanding that everything they did to you was load-bearing. Every rejection held weight that shaped you. Every dismissal carved something unnecessary away. Every closed door forced a direction that led somewhere the open doors never would have. You did not survive it despite the damage. You were built by it, piece by fracture by fracture. And now, here you stand, quietly, without announcement, carrying something they cannot name because they have never had to build anything from nothing. They inherited their footing. You forged yours. And there is a difference in how a person walks when the ground beneath them is something they made themselves. You can see it, even when they cannot. Especially when they cannot. They are going to look back one day at the version of you they dismissed. At the moment, they chose someone lesser because lesser was easier to manage. And the look on their face, oh, I have already seen it in my imagination 1,000 times with tremendous pleasure, will not be regret exactly. It will be something quieter than regret. Something that lives in the chest and has no clean word in any language. The feeling of understanding far too late that the thing you let go of was the whole point, and you will not even be watching when it happens. Because by then, you will have already moved on to something so much larger than their opinion ever was. I want to tell you something that nobody says out loud, not because it is a secret, but because most people are not ready to hear it until they have already lived through enough to make it land correctly. And I think you are finally there. The universe does not reward the loudest. It does not reward the most aggressive, the most connected, the most strategically positioned at the most convenient dinner table. It rewards the ones who kept going when keeping going made absolutely no logical sense. The ones who stayed in the work when the work offered nothing back. The ones who built in the dark without any guarantee that the light was even coming. That stubbornness, that irrational, almost embarrassing refusal to quit, is not a personality flaw. It is a frequency, and certain things in this world can only be received on that frequency. I did not understand that for a long time. I thought persistence was performance. I thought if I just pushed harder, louder, sharper, more dramatically, the world would finally flinch and give me what I was owed, Oh, I pushed. I made grand gestures in empty theaters. I delivered perfect arguments to people who had already decided before I opened my mouth. I burned so much energy trying to force the recognition that I had no energy left to simply become undeniable. And that is the trap, you see. That is the elegant, invisible trap. They do not have to defeat you. They just have to exhaust you, keep you reacting, keep you defending, keep you so consumed with what they think that you forget to think about what you are building. The moment I stopped reacting, truly stopped, not performed stopping, but actually released it, something shifted, not immediately, not dramatically, not with music and a cinematic camera pull, just quietly, the way a season changes. You do not see autumn arrive. You simply look up one morning, and the leaves have already decided. I started moving differently, not faster, not louder, differently, with a kind of deliberate calm that used to feel impossible when I was still trying to prove something to people who were not worth the proof. I stopped explaining my decisions. I stopped apologizing for my pace. I stopped shrinking my silence into something that would make other people comfortable with my presence in the room. I simply took up the space I was always entitled to and waited, with tremendous patience and zero urgency, for the work to speak in the voice I never could have manufactured myself. And it did, slowly, then suddenly, the way all real things arrive. Now here is what I need you to understand about the people who are currently watching you, the ones who smiled when you stumbled, the ones who quietly celebrated the closed doors, the ones who whispered, "I do not think he has what it takes," in rooms they assumed you would never hear about. They are still watching. They never stopped. Because here is the thing about people who dismiss someone prematurely. Some part of them always wonders if they were wrong. And that wondering never fully sleeps. It sits just behind their confidence like a splinter they cannot quite reach. They check on you. Oh, they will never admit it, but they check. They look at what you are building with eyes they try to make look casual and a jaw they try very hard to keep relaxed. And every time you grow, that splinter goes a little deeper. I do not say that to make you cruel. I say it because I want you to understand the actual geometry of your position. You think you are behind. You think they are ahead, but you are not running the same race. You never were. They are running a race with an audience. You are building a destination. And when the race is over, when the crowd disperses and the noise finally dies, the runners will look for somewhere to rest. Somewhere that means something, somewhere that was built with intention and shaped by genuine pain. And they will find your door, and they will knock. And you will decide whether to answer. That is the power they were never able to calculate. Not the power of revenge, not the power of superiority. The quiet, sovereign, unhurried power of someone who finally knows their own worth and has stopped offering it at a discount. You have been discounting yourself for the comfort of people who were never going to pay full price anyway. That ends now, not with an announcement, not with a speech, just a decision, made privately, kept privately, executed with the kind of consistency that makes the world reorganize itself around your direction of travel. I have walked through rooms that were designed to diminish me. I have sat across from people whose entire strategy depended on me believing I was smaller than I was, and I smiled at them. Oh, I smiled genuinely, because there is something almost affectionate about watching someone miscalculate the exact thing they needed to get right. "You will never be more than this," one of them told me once. I looked at the room, I looked at him, I looked at the door, and I said very softly, "Thank you," because he had just handed me the most useful thing anyone had ever given me. a ceiling so low that the moment I stood up straight, I was already through it. That is what they did for you, every single one of them. Every limitation they imposed, every door they shut, every room they refused to let you into. They were not blocking your path. They were redirecting it towards something larger than the thing you were asking for, towards something you could not have imagined from inside the room they were protecting. You needed to be turned away from that table. You needed that rejection. You needed that particular silence after that particular door closed, because that silence is what finally made you stop asking for a seat and start building your own table. And the table you are building, oh, it is something else entirely. It does not have a head position. It does not have a hierarchy. It is round, built from everything they threw at you. Solid in ways that inherited things can never be solid, because you know every plank. You remember exactly where each one came from, and that knowledge, that bone-deep scar tissue knowledge, is the kind of foundation that does not move when things get difficult, because difficult was where it was built. So here you are, at the end of everything they thought would finish you, still breathing, still building. Still moving, quietly, deliberately, without their permission, in the direction of everything they told you was not meant for you. And the most beautiful part, the part that makes me smile in a way that has nothing to do with cruelty, is that you are not even angry anymore. You are just clear. Clear about who you are. Clear about what you are building. Clear about the fact that the ones who doubted you did not slow you down. They sharpened you. And a sharpened thing, moving with direction and patience, is far more dangerous than anything they planned for. Say nothing. Keep building. Let them think it is over, because the most exquisite move you will ever make is the one nobody sees coming. And you have already begun it.